Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales. We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. Brandon Collins never imagined his downfall would begin with a glass of Chardonnay and a soft chuckle from his wife across a client's lounge. On the surface, life was enviable. Brandon, a senior systems architect at a high-profile consulting firm, and his wife, Naomi, a charismatic client engagement officer, had crafted a life that drew admiration from peers. A picturesque house in suburban Connecticut, two bright kids, Caitlin, 13, and Jonah, 11, and a shared circle of friends who toasted to their so-called perfect union at weekend BBQs. But perfect is a mask, and Brandon was learning the hard way that masks can crack without warning. It began on a humid Thursday morning when the CEO, Philip Garrison, summoned Naomi into his glass-paneled office. Brandon watched from his cubicle, his stomach twisting when she emerged with a wide, unreadable smile and a fancy-looking envelope in hand. "What's that?" he asked later, cornering her in the break room as she poured overpriced almond milk into her coffee. Naomi glanced at him, sipping before answering. "An invite. From Philip." "Well, technically from Vincent Caldwell." Brandon's brow furrowed. The name rang bells. Vincent Caldwell, a billionaire investor whose empire stretched from tech to luxury resorts. Naomi had been handling his account for 6 months, gushing about his charm and strategic brilliance. "He's hosting an exclusive retreat at his private island. 5 couples. Only top clients and their handlers. And you're going?" Naomi nodded slowly. "Philip said I've earned it." "It's networking, Brandon." "Are spouses invited?" he asked flatly. She hesitated a beat too long. "Yes. Vincent specifically requested we come as couples. Said it adds to the dynamic of the weekend." Brandon didn't like the sound of that. Something about the invitation itched under his skin like a sweater too tight around the collar. Naomi seemed excited, too excited. The kind of excitement she hadn't reserved for him in a while. Still, he nodded. "I guess we're going to an island, then." 2 weeks later, Brandon stepped off a private jet onto an island that looked like something off a billionaire's Pinterest board. White sand, palm trees swaying in salted air, and a mansion so grand it made their own home feel like a Lego model. Vincent Caldwell greeted them with the confidence of a man who owned everything he saw and believed he could own more. He was older than Brandon had expected, late 40s, tall, fit, effortlessly charming. His eyes lingered on Naomi with a familiarity that made Brandon's jaw twitch. "Naomi," Vincent said, taking her hand with both of his. "You're even more radiant in the sunlight." Naomi laughed, soft, flirtatious. Brandon felt invisible. They were ushered to a bungalow nestled near a cliff. Everything inside was tastefully designed. Silk sheets, mahogany wood, a stocked minibar that screamed indulgence. That first evening, Naomi slipped into a crimson backless dress that Brandon had never seen before. Her hair curled perfectly, eyes lit with a glow that wasn't meant for him. "You look," he began. "Don't," she interrupted, checking her lipstick in the mirror. "Let's not make it awkward. It's a work thing. Be on your best behavior." At dinner, Vincent played host with alarming ease. He sat beside Naomi the entire night, laughing with her, touching her arm when he made a joke, leaning in too close. Brandon sipped wine and faked interest in a conversation with a hedge fund manager's wife who seemed more interested in what Naomi was doing than anything else. By midnight, Naomi was tipsy. She leaned into Brandon as they walked back. "He's incredible, isn't he?" she said, voice dreamy. "Smart, generous." Brandon didn't respond. He just stared out at the crashing waves and wondered how the hell he ended up being background noise in his own marriage. The next morning, the real test came. Vincent called for a private chat. Naomi was already by his side. Brandon was led to the study by a man introduced simply as Seth, a security consultant built like a refrigerator, expression blank as stone. Inside, Vincent lounged in a leather chair, a crystal glass in hand. "Brandon," he began. "I'll be direct." Brandon leaned forward warily. "I like your wife," Vincent said. "I like her energy, her presence. I think she's uniquely talented. I like to spend more time with her. Alone. Intimately." Brandon blinked. Vincent didn't flinch. "Before you speak, this isn't an insult. It's a proposal. $200,000. Wired immediately. I get Naomi for the weekend. Just the weekend. No strings after. You go home a richer man. Brandon stared at him. You're joking. No. I'm offering you a chance to secure your children's future. To finally fix that leaky roof Naomi keeps complaining about. To breathe for once instead of clawing at the month's end. And Naomi knows about this? Vincent smiled. She agreed. She said she'd only do it if you agreed to. The door creaked. Naomi stepped in. She looked stunning. And ashamed. Brandon, she whispered. Please listen. Just listen. It's not what it sounds like. It's a transaction. Nothing more. Brandon felt his heart turn to ash. Get out, he said, voice hollow. But, get out. Naomi didn't move. Not until Seth stepped forward, gently guiding her by the arm. Brandon sat there alone, breathing fire, drenched in betrayal. Brandon Collins wasn't a man who broke easily. But that night, on that cursed island, as the love of his life chose another man in exchange for money, he shattered. The next 12 hours were a blur of whiskey, rage, and long, silent walks across manicured beaches that mocked him with their artificial calm. When he finally stumbled back to the bungalow, Naomi's side of the bed was untouched. Her perfume lingered, taunting him. He sat on the edge of the bed, gripping a tumbler of aged bourbon, staring at the wall. Every second that passed was a nail driven deeper into his ego, into the image he had of Naomi, of their marriage, of himself. He whispered, "She's not even sorry." That single thought ignited the first spark of something dangerous inside him. The next morning, Brandon didn't show up for the group brunch. Word had traveled. The other couples exchanged knowing glances as they floated in the pool or wandered the grounds. A few had the audacity to look sympathetic, but none dared approach him. He knew the whispers. Naomi's husband flipped. Vincent made an offer. She didn't say no. By afternoon, Brandon returned to the main house to confront them both, only to find Naomi in Vincent's lap under the veranda canopy. She was laughing at something he'd said, her hand resting on his thigh, skin to skin, shameless. The sight lit Brandon's soul on fire. "I see you've made yourself comfortable," Brandon said, venom lacing his voice. Naomi jumped, startled. Vincent merely smiled. "Brandon," he said smoothly, "still time to take the deal. I'm upping the offer. $250,000. Paid before sundown." Brandon barked a hollow laugh. "You think this is about money now?" "It always is," Vincent replied. Naomi looked at her husband with an expression that was a twisted mix of pity and defiance. "We agreed it would just be for the weekend. You said you'd listen. You didn't even give me that." "I didn't agree to be humiliated like this," Brandon growled. "You sold yourself for a slice of status. For a man who collects people like property." Naomi's eyes flickered. Regret? Shame? Maybe. But she didn't move. And that silence was louder than any apology. That night, Brandon didn't sleep. He wrote one word over and over in his mind. Revenge. But not petty revenge. Not the kind where you scream and break things. He wanted something permanent. When Monday came, he refused to board the private jet with the rest of them. Instead, Brandon bribed one of the island's freight haulers to sneak him onto a supply boat. The journey was long and wet, but he didn't care. He didn't even change out of the same clothes he'd worn the night before. Back in the city, he made one stop, home. The house was empty, his children still at their grandparents'. He walked into the master bedroom, looked around at everything Naomi owned, and began tearing it apart. Dresses, lingerie, jewelry, framed photos from their wedding, her favorite scented lotions, every memory they'd curated together, tossed into the backyard fire pit. When the pit was full, he doused it all with lighter fluid. And as flames consumed her legacy, Brandon stood in silence, drinking from the same bourbon bottle. "No one sells me and walks away," he whispered. The next day, Naomi returned with the kids. The moment she saw the ash heap in the yard, she dropped her suitcase. "My God," she murmured. Brandon emerged from the garage. Calm, sober, controlled. "You sold yourself for $250,000, he said. "Consider this the receipt." Naomi's face crumbled. "There's no money," she whispered. "Vincent," he lied. "After I slept with him, he said the offer was never serious, that it was a test of character. He fired me from the account. Jack said the firm doesn't want me back. I'm blacklisted." Brandon stared at her, unmoved. So you sold everything and didn't even get paid. Her voice shook. I was desperate. For us. For the kids. Don't you dare, he snapped. Don't pretend this was for anyone but yourself. Weeks passed. Tension turned into war. Brandon moved quickly. Hired a lawyer. Filed for divorce. Petitioned for full custody. And most dangerously, he revealed he had audio recordings. Bits of conversation he'd secretly captured before Naomi vanished into Vincent's arms. His lawyer called it moral leverage. Naomi? She called it blackmail. You're framing me like I'm a monster, she cried. Brandon's expression was stone. No, Naomi. I'm just giving the world a version of you showed me. In court, Brandon played the role of heartbroken husband turned devoted father. Naomi looked tired, unstable, with no income, no job, and no solid defense. The court awarded him full custody. Naomi was allowed visitation, but only under supervised conditions. After the hearing, Brandon didn't gloat. He didn't have to. As Naomi walked past him, her lawyer trailing, he whispered, "You gave me the knife. All I did was learn how to use it." She didn't reply. Her eyes were empty. And Brandon knew it wasn't over yet. It was just beginning. Naomi Alvarez, once Naomi Collins, stared at the courtroom's double doors long after they closed behind her ex-husband. Her ears still rang with the sound of the gavel, the judge's stern voice finalizing the custody decision, and the whisper Brandon had left her with. You gave me the knife. All I did was learn how to use it. She'd been outplayed. And the worst part? She'd handed him every tool. Naomi's world shrunk overnight. Gone was the executive lifestyle. The car with leather seats. The glass office overlooking the skyline. The birthday brunches with clients who toasted to her elegance and charm. Now, she was jobless. Disgraced. Living in a one-bedroom rental unit with water stains on the ceiling and a front door that stuck when it rained. She took a job at a department store. Stockroom work. Night shifts. The kind that leaves your fingers raw and your back aching. Her old friends disappeared like smoke. Even those who once envied her became cold or avoided her entirely. Can't be seen with a woman who traded her marriage for a weekend with a billionaire. She overheard one whisper at a coffee shop. But what truly haunted Naomi wasn't the gossip. It was Caitlin. Her daughter had stopped responding to texts. Calls rang endlessly. When Naomi left voicemails, she didn't know if they were even heard. She once tried to show up at Jonah's soccer game. Brandon spotted her across the field, then leaned down and whispered something to Jonah. Her son didn't even wave. He looked away. Naomi's heart cracked that day, but not enough to break her. Not yet. Back at the apartment, Naomi cracked open another bottle of cheap wine, letting the sharpness coat her tongue like punishment. One mistake. That's all it took. She played it in her mind over and over. The moment Vincent made the offer, the hesitation in Brandon's eyes, the lie she told herself that it would all blow over, that they'd recover. But some lines, once crossed, aren't just invisible. They're burned into the earth. One rainy Tuesday, Naomi made a call. To Charlotte, the woman Vincent had dangled in front of Brandon like a toy. Naomi had always sensed there was more to Charlotte, something sinister beneath the polished smiles. But Charlotte was the only person left with a foot in that world. Naomi, Charlotte answered coldly. Didn't expect to hear from you. I need help, Naomi said, voice hoarse. Vincent, he never paid me. He promised $250,000. After it was over, he said there was no contract. He lied. And you expected a man like Vincent Caldwell to honor his word. I was humiliated. Fired. My kids barely look at me. You have no idea what he cost me. There was a long pause. I have every idea, Charlotte said. You were never special, Naomi. You were just next. Then the line went dead. Naomi screamed. The kind of scream that tears muscle from bone. She hurled her phone across the room, watched it shatter like her life had. She sank to the floor, sobbing. But through those tears, something inside her stirred. Something dark. Something new. The next day, Naomi didn't go to work. She opened her laptop and began building a digital file. Every email, every calendar invite from the firm's system she'd saved. Voicemails, texts, even the ones from Vincent. She remembered the NDA she signed at the beginning of the project. But Vincent had sent messages outside official channels. Suggestive ones. Ones that could be read the wrong way. Or the right way, if packaged properly. She drafted timeline. Then a formal complaint. Then another. To the state board. to the firm's ethics division, to journalists who loved fallen idols and power-abusing moguls. Naomi hit send. She didn't want money anymore. She wanted ruin. Meanwhile, Brandon thrived, or so it seemed. He moved into a bigger house. His consulting firm took off, thanks to hush money from the old company, which feared public lawsuits. He hired a private tutor for Caitlin and Jonah, told the mom was sick, unstable, unpredictable. The kids didn't ask questions. But behind closed doors, Brandon wasn't sleeping. He replayed the moment he punched Vincent in the face almost every night. And the way Naomi had looked when she left court, shattered, but not defeated. She was going to do something. He felt it. And he was right. 2 weeks later, headlines broke. Billionaire accused of offering cash for sexual favors from client representative during corporate retreat. Vincent Caldwell under fire after internal messages leak. Ethics violations mount. Former employee claims she was blacklisted after refusing ongoing advances. The story exploded. Naomi didn't include her name in the leaks. But people guessed. Her photo appeared in tabloids. Some mocked her. Others called her brave. Vincent was summoned for hearings. The firm issued a cold statement distancing themselves. Philip Garrison resigned a month later. Brandon read the news while sipping espresso in his glass kitchen. He couldn't stop the smirk from forming. She was fighting back. He admired her for it, but he wasn't going to let her win. The headline spread faster than wildfire. Brandon knew the second he saw Vincent's name trend that Naomi was behind it. She had finally hit back, smart, quiet, and targeted. And for once, it actually impressed him. But admiration didn't mean forgiveness, especially not after what she cost him. Vincent was done. His investors backed off. He stepped down as CEO of 2 companies. Naomi's silence during the media storm gave her an air of dignity. She didn't chase cameras. She didn't make TikToks or blog posts. She just let the story do its damage. But there was a problem. Naomi didn't get her life back. No one rehired her. She was still jobless, still alone. Because in the real world, exposing power doesn't always redeem you. Sometimes it brands you. Brandon saw her one afternoon by chance. She was at the grocery store in a cashier uniform, head low, hands trembling slightly as she bagged someone else's kale and eggs. She didn't see him. He didn't speak. But when he went home that night, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Not out of love, out of curiosity. What does a person look like when they've lost everything, but still keep going? Meanwhile, Caitlin had changed. She was quieter, colder, snappier with Jonah. Brandon noticed the way she looked at him, like she was searching for something she didn't like in his face. Then one night, she asked, "Dad, did you show Mom's video to anyone?" Brandon froze. She found out. He'd once shown it to a friend in a drunken rage. Maybe that friend shared it. He denied it. "I would never do that. That video was private." "Who told you that?" Caitlin just stared at him, then walked away. The next week, he got served papers. Naomi was suing him this time for defamation and illegal distribution of a private recording. Brandon laughed when he read it. But deep down, he wasn't so sure he'd win this time. Because Naomi wasn't playing defense anymore. She was finally playing offense. The court summons hit harder than Brandon expected. He thought Naomi was broken, done, finished. But this lawsuit, it was surgical, cold, strategic. She didn't want custody. She didn't even want money. She wanted a verdict, a public one. One that said, "He went too far." Brandon's lawyer looked concerned during the first meeting. "If you share that video, even once, it's distribution without consent. That's a felony, especially if it reached your kids." Brandon clenched his jaw. "I didn't send it." "Are you sure?" the lawyer asked, eyes narrowing. "Because if someone else got it from you, you're still liable." Brandon didn't answer. The trial was quiet. No media, just a closed court. But the tension? Nuclear. Naomi took the stand and didn't cry. She didn't play the victim. She simply stated the facts. She'd made a mistake. One she owned. But Brandon weaponized it. "He humiliated me. Not just as punishment, but as sport," she said. "He showed the video to people. One of them showed it to my daughter." Brandon's chest tightened. Caitlin had never looked at him the same after that. The judge ruled in Naomi's favor. Brandon avoided jail time, but was hit with heavy damages and court-ordered therapy. Worse, he lost joint custody. Naomi didn't get full custody, but she regained equal rights. The court saw Brandon as vengeful, controlling. A man who'd let rage poison his fatherhood. Months passed. Brandon's business slowed. His reputation took a hit. Naomi? She found a job at a nonprofit, low-paying but honest. She even started to rebuild things with Caitlin and Jonah. Not completely, but enough. One night, Brandon stood outside Naomi's new apartment. He wasn't there to beg. He wasn't there to fight. He just wanted to see her face. She opened the door slowly, cautious. They stared at each other in silence. Then Brandon said the hardest thing he'd ever had to. "You won." Naomi shook her head. "No, we both lost. But at least now, I can breathe." Brandon nodded once, then walked away.